name is Jenny, and I'm a wife and mom raising 2 kids. But I used to live a more glamorous life as a TV reporter. I was on the nightly news interviewing pop stars and politicians. So when I said goodbye to TV and hello to motherhood, I suddenly discovered what we moms are up against. We live in a world that tells us to be rich and famous, thin and successful. You know, almost nobody says, "Oh, hey, you're a mom? That is fabulous." But you are fabulous, and I'm here to tell you why.
It's the Channel Mom Show, celebrating you with Jenny Dean Schmidt.
Brought to you by the Healthy Marriage Project. Just click on one of their ads to find out about a healthy relationship workshop near you. I am Jenny Dean Schmidt, your host, and excited about this next guest. If you are tired of hearing all the bad stuff when you turn on the news, we have got a woman who used to work in the news business who decided to turn her experience into something that she calls good news. She was tired of the bad news too. Angie Austin worked in TV news for 22 years before making the transition to radio. Angie was the weekday morning anchor of KWGN's Channel 2's morning show. And before that, she worked for KNBC in Los Angeles and the Fox TV station in San Diego, California. Angie now has her own show called The Good News every weekday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on AM 810 KLVZ. We're not afraid to promote other people's shows around here, as long as they're doing something wonderful like she is. And Angie is a mom, I think, of 3. Is that correct, Angie? Welcome to the show.
That's right. Thanks, Jenny. I'm so glad to be on. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've got 3 little kids. They just changed ages recently, so now they are 3, 5, and 1 just turned 7.
Wow. So you only have 1 still in no, is 1 out of are they all out of diapers?
Yeah, they're thankfully, yes, they're all I used to take 15 pieces of luggage and all the car seats and then the playpen. And I remember once we counted 15 pieces of luggage and then baby stuff. And this time we only took 5 when we went on vacation.
Awesome. I do think as Americans, though, we probably overindulged on the baby stuff. I sometimes thought, why do we need all this stuff for our babies?
But that playpen, I'm telling you, that was a lifesaver. When you were in a hotel,
yes.
You just kind of plunk them in there.
Yes.
So it was like a baby prison while you did your hair.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then you didn't worry about them on the gross hotel carpet and the gross hotel bedspread and things like that. Right. Shelley has a question for you, and I did not let Shelley talk in our last segment, so I'm going to make sure she gets to you. But let me just quickly ask you how you became a mom in the midst of your TV career and how you decided to make it all work together and gel, because a lot of us have had that question.
Okay, so, I was getting up at 2:45, and to be completely honest with you, I really don't know how I did my whole pregnancy doing the weather each time. First of all, I got gigantic, and I blocked the whole western slope. So doing the weather, I would block a lot of the map, but I did get letters in the beginning, and women, you will relate to this, where people would write to me, and I remember one in particular that said, "Are you pregnant again, or are you eating too many cookies?"
Oh, great!
And I wrote back and said, "Both. Thank you for noticing." Because I was probably eating too many cookies. But so it's tough to gain weight on TV, because everyone takes note. I remember one man writing in and telling me how horribly I was dressing. And I wrote back and said, "Well, I'm doing the best I can. I'm 6 months pregnant, and they're maternity clothes." And he wrote back and said, "Oh, if you're pregnant, then I guess you actually look pretty good."
Well, God bless you for writing them back.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That was so nice of you to write them back, Angie. And you and I used to work at Channel 2 together for a very brief period, and I worked at other TV stations. And people, actually, I didn't get too many criticisms, but I wasn't anchoring; I was reporting, so they couldn't say much about how I looked. Right. But they would call in if I wasn't wearing a hat or gloves out in the snow. They'd say, "Please tell her to put on some gloves."
That's so funny because they don't realize that you're really only outside the van sometimes for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
So, and sometimes a storm comes out of nowhere and you don't have all your snow gear with you,
Absolutely.
Which we always should. But, yes, people would always write, into me too, and tell that reporter to put on her hat, or isn't she cold?
Well, at least they were caring for us, right?
Yeah.
Hey, now, I love that, because I think almost all of us that have been in the news business, especially if we're mothers, have said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so bad that when my kids flip this thing on, Daddy has to turn it back off because I'm only giving bad news." And so you said, all right, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to start this show called The Good News on KLVZ. And I love that you've done that. And I applaud you for it. Shelley does have a question for you, though. So go ahead,
Sure.
Shelley.
Great. Thanks for the intro.
Welcome.
So no, really, how do you do it? How do you have just good news? It has got to be so hard.
It's not that hard. So the bad news, you guys, I have to tell you, is I became a mom. When I started reading it, I would cry sometimes, or like I'd pretend it wasn't affecting me, but in the commercial breaks, I would just like, I would think, I would pray, please God, don't let me have that story again. Let Tom read it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to say that because it would seem unprofessional to, say I don't want to read that story. Yeah. If it involved like kids being injured or hurt or, God forbid, even worse. So that was hard, and my children would my husband turned it on in the morning, and they would kiss the screen to say good morning to me. But they were young enough at the time that they really didn't get the news yet. Now my son would get it. Yeah. And so I did have a lot of people come up to me and complain, the news is so negative. Why do you have only negative news? And I think when we're in the midst of a career we've worked really hard for, we don't think about the sacrifices we're making. I mentioned to you how hard it was while I was pregnant. I had morning sickness every day. I have no idea how I got through those 3 pregnancies as sick as I was, getting up at 2:45. And then you don't realize the time you're taking away from your family. But because I worked so hard to get there, 7 days a week when I worked in Los Angeles, I worked almost 7 days a week until I was 35. So then when I have my kids, when I'm in my late 30s and early 40s, I don't realize that, I'm away from them a lot and I'm exhausted all the time. Yeah. Well, God had a plan for me. I was told I was being renewed, and then they gave me a temporary contract, and then they met with me, and out of the blue, I thought I was just going to get my raise, and they said, we've decided not to renew you. So I was shocked for about 5 seconds. I first thought my boss was joking, like he was punking me.
Yeah.
And when I looked at him and realized he was actually serious, because, I really liked him. I thought he really liked me. I was so stunned. I felt a peace come over me that I cannot even explain, like that peace, like relief that finally I could sleep and have more time with my children. So I thought, after that settled in, what can I do that will agree with my faith and my belief that there's good news out there, and you just have to dig a little harder for it? Because the bad news, a fire or a shooting, it happens and you drive to it and you do a live report, and that's you don't even have to find it because you get an address where the fire takes place. But with good news, you have to dig a little bit more. But I have to tell you guys, I have found the most extraordinary people. I had a little boy on yesterday who's 12, who when he was 8 did so many horrible things that he would have gone to jail. Like he tagged his school bus with a dirty word and his teacher's name, and he was threatening his teacher. He was so angry at his father for drinking that he was taking the wrong road. His single mother sent him to the Betty Ford Center for 4 days for kids to deal with parents' alcoholism, and it taught him to separate his anger and be mad at the alcoholism but still love his dad. This kid now is 12, and he speaks to other children about alcoholism in the home and how they can cope. And then I had a man who'd been using drugs for like 40 years, and he now has reunited with his children. He went through the program at the Denver Rescue Mission, and now he is back in touch with his children, and he's working at the mission. And then one guy came out of prison, and he'd had a horrible life and horrible family upbringing, and now he's become a pastor. I just have had the most amazing people come on.
Absolutely.
And I find the good news. So, but with that, you can relate to this part, Jenny, that I didn't get to spend much time with my kids before. My show is 1 hour, so now I work at home with an iPad. My kids are all around me. One just started half-day kindergarten, and then one's home all the time. So even though I am working a lot at home on my iPad, I'm on the floor with them, and if they need me, I'm right there.
Yeah. And actually, by the grace of God, something very similar happened to me right after I had my son. A new news director came on board in Cleveland where I was and said, hey, we're not interested in renewing you. And I was, at the time, I was shocked, much like you, but honestly, God changed my life through that. And suddenly I had this enforced, hey, you're going to be a stay-at-home mom. And within, a very short period of time, I was great with that. And I realized it was a gift. So,
it is a gift.
Yeah, it is. So sometimes those things, when we get let go, are gifts. And I applaud what you do, that you're able to stay home with your kids. We only got about 4 or 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure you get to a couple more things. How do you feel, Angie, about the state of motherhood and family in America right now? You're a mom, you work, you're trying to bring people good news, you're on a Christian radio station, you're trying to do the right thing. How are you feeling about how family is functioning, how motherhood is functioning in this country right now?
Well, I feel like maybe we're trying to be friends with our kids too much. I had a big discussion yesterday on the show about uniforms. We have a 5-page uniform policy at my school. I thought it was a little over the top. They sent when my kindergartner came home the first day, she said, I can't wear nail polish. It was like her treat for the first day to have her nails polished. And I thought, well, that's a little much because sometimes the teachers have nose rings or a tattoo or something. So I'm like, I don't like the double standard.
Yeah.
So I put on my Facebook, how do you feel about this? I had so many people write in and say the girls in high school, particularly the girls, are wearing things that are way too revealing, shorts that are way too short that you can see at the back of when they walk up the stairs at school, spaghetti strap shirts. And one teacher from an elementary school called in and told me he had a young girl in elementary school, summer school, that was dressing so provocatively that he called the parents and said, she cannot dress like this. The mom was dressed just alike, and she said, I'll dress my child how I want to. And that poor kid had to wear a baggy T-shirt over her clothes because the teacher covered her up every day.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I know. My husband's a high school principal, so he has to throw old jerseys at kids all the time that are wearing things like that.
And a father made the best point to me. He said, I tell my sons, do not trifle with girls' emotions. Do not tell them you care about them more than you do just to take advantage of them. And then I tell my young girls, do not dress in a way that trifles with boys' emotions. If you're dressing in a way that is distracting boys and making them look at you in an objectified manner, the girls are really not treating the boys right either because they're like throwing a carrot in front of them and maybe making the boys react a way that they wouldn't if they didn't see that. I know that when we hear about women dressing a certain way, they don't deserve any bad treatment, right?
Yeah.
But when they're young, as parents, we have a duty, an obligation to protect them from those prying eyes that are going to view them in a different way. They don't view them as a child when they're dressed that provocatively.
Right. I don't think we go from A to Z sometimes as parents. I think we just say, oh, and maybe not you, I'm not saying you, but parents will just say, oh, let her wear the shirt, she loves it. And they don't go from A to Z and they say, well, what is this going to lead to? What is she really saying by wearing this? And we have to go that deep. We just have to if we're going to raise babies. By the way, I want to tell you, I remember when that little 5-year-old who's going off to kindergarten wanting to wear her nail polish was a baby with an exploding diaper at a party. And it will, the exploding diapers that go all the way up the back?
Oh, my gosh, that's right. And my daughter went poo-poo all over my boss's sister. Remember?
At that same party at Vita's house?
That was my boss. That was my news director's sister.
Oh, that's right. It was.
Yeah. But that news director really liked me.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. He was a very nice guy. Well, so just really quickly, tell people about your show, how they can find you, what you hope to give them, and just here in the next 30 seconds.
Okay, it's 8:10 a.m. You can listen to it on a line as well. You can find me on Facebook, on Angie Austin Facebook. It's 810 KLVZ. And as you know, Jenny, they can also listen to our shows on the smartphone with a TuneIn radio app.
Yep.
And Jenny, the hardest part of this, to be honest with you, has not been finding the news. It's finding sponsors. I don't know if you have to get your own sponsors, but people told me that they wanted good news, but to actually get people to support the show, I have to make the calls, and I'm not a good salesperson.
Oh, I think you are, Angie. You're going to do just fine. Hey.
Well, Jenny, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my show, and I would love to have you on as well, so let's arrange that next.
I'll take you up on that. And God bless you for what you do, Angie. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Bless you, too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It does make me a little bit mad, though. Why aren't sponsoring her? Why aren't sponsors sponsoring her?
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's maddening.
We're doing very well with our show. We're doing okay after a year. But initially, to tell people, hey, we're just going to chat with moms, sponsors are like, okay, so there's nothing like sexy about it.
Nobody dies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But now they get it. They get that moms want to hear things that are going to help their lives. And people are going to get it with Angie, too. I mean, I do wish her blessings, and I really do want it to work out for her. Obviously, she's doing the right thing. God bless her.